इतना सा फर्क है कुछ होने में और बहुत कुछ होने में। इतना सा फर्क है एक बार सोच के छोड़ देने में और लग के कर दिखाने में। मान लेने में कि जिंदगी ऐसे ही कटेगी और सुबह 4 बजे उठ के सोचने में ये अभी तो बस शुरुआत है। किसी मैगजीन को हाथ में लेने में और उसी मैगजीन के कवर पेज पे होने में इतना सा ही तो फर्क है। वीआईपी सीट में और उसकी पिछली सीट में इतना सा ही तो फर्क है। वो जिसका मैदान ही खुला आसमान है वही कल जमीन पर तो था। पूछोगे तो बताएगा वो पंछी ये एक दायरे में सिमटने में और पूरी दुनिया को दायरा बनाने में बस इतना सा फर्क है। इतना कितना है? इतना है या इतना है? जो नापेगा वो जाने कि जहां धरती और आसमान मिलते हैं, नानकुर से दूर, अगर मगर शायद से दूर, वहां भी दोनों में फर्क बस इतना सा है। धरती और 7वें आसमान में फर्क बस इतना सा है। ये एक अंतर प्रेरणा है। ये हमारी, आपकी, हम सब की अंतर प्रेरणा है। एक कदम, एक छलांग, एक बाजी, एक गहरी सांस और एक ललकार खुली हवाओं में कि हाँ मैं बना हूं उन फिजाओं के लिए, कि हाँ मैं बना हूं उन ऊंचाइयों के लिए जो ऊंची तो बहुत है पर नामुमकिन भी नहीं, क्योंकि मुमकिन और नामुमकिन में बस इतना सा फर्क है। धूप छांव में फर्क बस इतना सा। तो बस चलिए फ्रेंचाइज इंडिया के साथ ये फर्क मिटा देते हैं। फ्रेंचाइज इंडिया।
Hello and good evening, everyone. A warm welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's Franchise Coach Masterclass. Every day, thousands of people invest in franchises, believing that a popular brand alone guarantees the success. However, the reality is quite different. Successful franchise investors don't make emotional decisions. They make informed decisions based on proper due diligence and a structured evaluation process. This session introduces exactly that approach through 5 franchise investment assessment tools that helps investors choose the right franchise business opportunity. Today's session is just not all about selling a franchise, it is about learning on how to evaluate one. Whether you are an aspiring entrepreneur, an investor, or a franchise consultant, you will gain a practical framework to assess any franchise opportunity before investing your hard-earned money. During this masterclass, we'll explore the critical assessment areas which you must consider before you invest. And to guide you further on this, so I'm joined with Ms. Sonia Chaudhary. She's the Managing Director with almost 20 plus years of expertise in franchising. And we might also have Mr. Gaurav Maria, who's the chairman of Franchise India Group, widely recognized as a thought leader in franchising, entrepreneurship, and business expansion. But before I invite Ms. Sonia Chaudhary, the Managing Director, I would also like to inform all our viewers that it is indeed a great opportunity for you. Anything, if you have planning or if you are planning to invest in any franchise, and in case if you have any query, any question that you would like to ask related to how to decide in selection of franchising, you please keep it sharing in the chat box, and we will take them up during the presentation. So my request is to please share your name, any particular category you are looking for your franchisee, and your location where you're from. That will really help us understand to help you better. May I now request Sonia ma'am to take the lead? Let's get started.
Thank you so much, Bharat, and friends. Very good evening to all of you. I welcome you on our first webinar on Franchise Coach. And these are webinar series that we have started with today being our first session, hosted by Franchise India. And this has been created for entrepreneurs, investors who are looking to invest in businesses, whether you are a first-time entrepreneur or a seasoned entrepreneur. This gives you assistance to start your own business. And like I said, every week we bring to a new topic, and the topic for today is how to select the right franchise. And at Franchise India, we bring in 28 years of our validated learning, where we have worked with I would say thousands of companies in helping them creating the right sustainable business model, from Indian companies to global brands entering Indian market. But more importantly, I would say we have understood the other side of the business, which is the power of entrepreneurship. And we have worked with millions of investors in selecting the right opportunity which is right for them. So when we work with our investor community, our focus is not the brands that we can present to them, but more importantly, what opportunities are the right fitment for our investor community. So we've created a franchise investment due diligence framework. A prospective franchisee should leave, when you close this session today, with a practical checklist to evaluate any opportunity that comes your way. And so there's a holistic framework which is used and should be used by any aspiring investor who wants to start a business. And we have realized, I personally have realized in these many years of my own experience working with investors and companies, people don't fail because they buy a franchise. They fail because they buy the wrong franchise for themselves. There is a misunderstanding of their own fitment, maybe the market they are putting the business in, the kind of time involvement they have in the business. The best franchise for one of you, or maybe one investor, can be worse for another one. So there are a few questions we have to ask when we get into scouting, evaluating, discovering opportunities, which is first and foremost your own understanding of your own investor mindset, your profile. I feel the business, or I would say franchisee, should fit, a business should be able to fit in the franchisee. It should not be the other way around. So profile of diagnostic or profile is something which is very important. So which, franchise investor type you are. People buy franchisees for different reason, and my reason for starting a business can be very different to everybody out there. So understanding your profile, I would say, is a very important question, where you understand your mindset as an investor. And second is to get very deep understanding of the reason or the goal of your investment, the objective behind that investment. And for many of us, some investments are looked at from a short-term point of view, some are from a mid-term point of view and a long-term point of view. So we need to understand why, as an investor, as a business owner, I would like to invest in a specific business. And then comes our capability to invest in a business, which means the kind of finance or capital we are bringing to the business. And finally comes another question is our time commitment to the business that you want to get involved in. So what we have understood, today we've been working in this industry and being pioneers. We have worked, like I said, every single month. There are about 100,000 aspiring entrepreneurs who reach out to Franchise India to understand different opportunities. And the times have changed today. Today, there are more entrepreneurs who are looking to start a business than I personally feel has been in the history of entrepreneurship ever. And today, the barrier to start a business also has come down. When we started in 1999, comparatively, with I would say 100 franchisees being sold, or we were selling or giving out, the investor community that was coming to take these businesses largely were experienced business owners who were either running their own businesses or I would say some form of franchise business. In a very small community, that was only 10% were first generation entrepreneurs. But today, and the reasons were many, right? And I'm sure you all would agree. One, the latent need, I would say, in a market like India was always there, because India historically has been a very big entrepreneur market where people have an aspiration to start a business at some point of time in their lives. And today, this has become even bigger than what it was. But that time, there were no platforms to educate investors, one. Second, there were no platforms to even discover opportunities, second. And third, which is still, I would say, with 28 years of us working in the industry, the biggest problem is, how do I evaluate if that business opportunity is right for me? I have worked with, consulted in these years, so many investors. Even people who come with experience in running franchise businesses, have invested in many businesses, both I would say active investors as well as passive investments. The biggest question mark that comes to them is how do we evaluate what is the right opportunity for us? So I'll run you through, a framework of what we feel is the right way to do that. And like I said, it all comes with our understanding of franchise industry at large. We have been sensing a lot of trends over these years, and because we are very deep in the business, we have been able to sense trends much faster than anybody else does. And also the research team at Franchise India, we proactively reach out to companies even before sometimes a demand comes in, and we know this is going to be a big category in India. So I'll start with, friends, giving you a little introduction about Franchise India. I don't know how many of you know Franchise India, but we are a company that comes with our 28 years of journey in franchising, and we today are world's largest franchise development and distribution company, which runs largely, I would say, four businesses, and there are multiple companies under our group name. So first and foremost, I would say is the media business. We run about 200 odd events every single year, larger exhibition events where investors, franchisees like you can come and discover opportunities and their companies who participate. We also run three leading publications, including Entrepreneur, which is globally #1 B2B magazine. In fact, Franchise India is a joint venture with Entrepreneur, which is an American magazine, and then two other publications, which includes Franchising World and Retailer. Our second business DNA is largely consulting companies on building the right sustainable business model for them, and that is a company called FrankCorp, which again is an American company, and Franchise India acquired FrankCorp about 20 years back. And FrankCorp, both in America and in India, we have worked with all the top names in franchising, from the likes of McDonald's, KFC's, Google, Chromebook in India, 3M. These are companies that we have worked very, very closely to launch first, franchise sustainable models for them. And it goes down to even a lot of startups that came into franchising. So that's what we do on one side. My third business is which is my very trusted investor community, which is people who want to start a business. Because at Franchise India, we understand that today business buyers like you just don't need the information on the brand, which is not limited to the investment, the margins, the royalties in the business. But more importantly, where we all lack, because we see a lot of data, we see a lot of numbers. But in spite of that fact, we are unable to analyze a lot of insights and do a lot of analytics ourselves, which makes the decision making even more difficult for somebody to decide. So we work with you to help you take this informed decision of starting a business. And being an investor-centric company and franchise-focused, our endeavor has always been to advise business buyers on the right business opportunities and how to evaluate them. And like I said, that comes with our learning of working with millions of investors and thousands of companies. So at the group level, friends, we are a strong team. We are present in 97 cities in India. We also operate in 19 countries, international market by the name of Fran Global. And so all our businesses outside India, they operate under the name of Fran Global. And we also work with a lot of global companies for their market entries through Fran Global. And in these 2.5+ decades, we have been instrumental in bringing more than 800 global brands to different parts of the world, but largely India, the subcontinent, Middle East is where our focus has been. So, and outside that, given our learning of the industry, Franchise India and Fran Global collectively, we also own about 70 companies where we own the master franchise rights of these companies, which are across different industries, and they come from different markets across the globe. So friends, very quickly, I'll take you through maybe another 20 odd minutes. If you have any specific questions, you may please use the Q&A box. I'll be happy to answer these questions for you. And if you can also write the city that you're from and any specific industry that you need more information on. And if you also want to brainstorm with our teams and maybe do a 30 minutes or a 45 minutes or a 1-hour session, we'll be happy to also invite you to our offices. So if you can go on the next slide, Bharat. So I'll start with this quote, and this is something that we have been practicing right from day one. And this is something that we even preach to every single, I would say, investor community that is looking to start a business. And the first, word that you see is take control, which is very, very important part of franchise business. And it says the ultimate success or failure of your franchise is largely your responsibility. When I say your franchise, because you become the owner of a franchise business, it is largely the responsibility of a franchisee. And yes, your franchisor, the brand, is going to train you on the systems, on the processes, and give you the tools to build a business, but you will be on your own to run the day-to-day operations of your business, the center, the business, whether that's a unit outlet or a bigger territory that you own at a country level or at an area level. You can call the franchisor with questions, but decisions will ultimately be yours. Embrace and enjoy this freedom. It's part of, the appeal of entrepreneurship is, we talk. Thank you. Thank you, friends. I see a lot of your comments coming in. Keep writing in. I'll also take that up. Next slide. In fact, why I feel that quote is very important, working with so many investors in these decades, I felt sometimes the brand is same, it is the same logo, it is the same training, but the biggest differentiator is the profile of the partner. So the fitment of both, I would say, the opportunity and the profile is extremely important. So what we have done is we've created this holistic 5 franchise investment assessment tool. And first and foremost is your self-assessment. I always say this is the very first step, the foundation of thinking, or even before we scout out to find out the opportunity, because your business is always strong as your own clarity on what you want to do. And self-assessment is most valuable tool for aspiring entrepreneurs. I always say be honest with yourself. When I say be honest with yourself, we all have our own strength and weaknesses. So it's very important that we define what we are good at and what we are not. And so this is about your own clarity of your goals. And the key aspects here is your own experience. It could be on the industry or otherwise, the business knowledge that you have on any specific industry, the investment you want to put in the business, financial ability for your own financial ability to put in the business, which can be a combination of debt and equity, which also has to be carefully planned. And finally comes the commitment of the time that you have to put in the business. So these are 3 important things that you have to actually understand. And a professional due diligence framework is very important for selecting the right franchise. So I'll read this out for you. So successful franchise investors don't make emotional decisions. It's very important. Sometimes I hear a lot of my investors, people who want to start a business, they make a lot of emotional decisions to start a business. They want to do something which they feel they're very passionate about without even understanding the unit economics or the financial implications of that business. So if you want to be an intelligent investor, you have to take an informed decision. And every investment should pass through these 5 assessment lenses before a commitment is made. Next. So this is first, like I said, your own assessment. Is this business the right fit for me? Because different opportunities, you can bring in different set of, I would say, strength, which are more relevant for certain set of businesses. So the objective is, before evaluating any franchise, you must first evaluate yourself. A successful business is one that aligns with your personality, your overall experience. It could be your education and financial capacity, and also your long-term goal overall in the business. Next. So these are 5 areas, when I talk about our own assessment. First is, what is your investment objective? Like I said, that's very, very important. And these investment objectives largely, has to be, like I said, from an immediate to a midterm to a long-term goal. So there are 2 areas you should always link is your life goals and financial goals. I always say that use the TRR rule, which is the time to get or expect the return on the investment that you have to put in. Second, what is the risk as an investor, as a business owner, I would rather say, you're willing to take on the business or investment you want to do. And third is the return that you expect on the investment. Now, if I explain that with an example of investment in different asset classes, franchising comparatively works very, very differently. But irrespective of that fact, any asset class that you want to invest in, whether these are passive investment classes, which does not require your own time involvement, and which are your stock markets or I would say property, real estate business. The other is active businesses like franchising. 90%, rather more, I would say 95% of businesses in India globally are owned and operated by micro entrepreneurs or large entrepreneurs who put in their time to run and operate the business. But irrespective of that, there are only three fundamental goals under which our goal, the financial goals, are in. And these asset classes can be categorized according to these fundamental goals. The first is safety of your money, right? So the very first thought everybody has when you put your investment is safety, because you don't want to take, and this is how we even put our investments. If I have some capital to be deployed, I will maybe put that investment into three baskets. One is safety, because we want to have some money which is kept aside. But safety also means that I am adverse to taking risk. And safety businesses, investments also give you lesser return. Classic examples are FD. Sometimes they don't even meet the inflation most of the times, but that is the money which is parked safe. And I'm giving you this explanation because you will find the similarity between this and businesses in franchising, how business models are made at different stages of their life. So safety is one fundamental goal. So, and second is income, which means as a business owner, investor, I can take maybe a moderate risk on the investment and equally a moderate return. And then comes growth, which is one asset class which gives you comparatively high returns on the investment, but also gives you, I would say, comparatively high risk. So that's very, very important, for us to understand what kind of money, what kind of returns, time that we're willing to put behind that. Second is, as a business owner, what kind of management capability do you have? And so that's extremely important, because when you run and operate a business, you need to have very strong management capabilities. Yes, the company trains you on that. So the questions that you need to ask yourself is, can I recruit and retain teams? Maybe initially the company can help you recruit teams, but are you in a capacity that you can retain the teams over a period of time? Because retention is one of the biggest problems, not only with people who are running even the first time businesses, but even people who are running multiple locations. So that's one question we have to ask. And if I can also manage people very effectively in my center. And then comes our question of if I'm comfortable in the customer facing businesses, because all the businesses are consumer facing businesses. So we have to be very comfortable networking, moving out. And the biggest role I personally feel a franchise owner has is to do business development, which is bringing in more and more consumers to their centers, to their outlet. So this becomes a very big role. And then comes the risk appetite. And like I gave you example, it can be conservative, moderate, and aggressive. And based on the risk appetite, different business opportunities can suit you. And then comes the commitment on the time, whether you want to put lesser time or you want to put the entire time into operating the business. Like I said, today, 95% of businesses are owned and operated by franchisees, and 5% can be businesses which might not need a lot of your operational time, but they need another fitment, which is financial fitment. These are large, I would say, projects, can be a K-12, could be a super specialty hospital, which might need, or a five-star hotel, which does not need your operational time, but it needs financial fitment, which means your money, and sometimes a strategic fitment also in combination, which means if you have the right real estate, which can dwell, on which the business can dwell. And finally comes your readiness of capital, the finances. So which means what is the total capital which is available with you? That's very important. The fundamental rule that we advise our investors, and different businesses have different ratios. I work with so many brands, and there's a brand, that I work. Some brands have a 60-40 ratio. They want to advise their investors to bring in larger equity and lesser softer loan, because in India, the cost of financial management is very high. The cost of capital is very high. And this is also a reason which leads to a big financial mismanagement and mess overall. So what is the total capital which is available with you? How do you want to fund your business? What is the ratio of debt and equity you want to bring in the business? The thumb rule we always advise is 50-50. So 50% your own equity savings and 50% can be a softer loan that can be taken. But I always say if your overall investment that you're considering is lesser than 40 odd lakhs, the overall equity you should put in the business comparatively has to be higher. At least it should be at least what 70 odd percent, 70-75%, and what 25-30% can be a softer loan. So these are four areas, which is total capital which is available, how you're going to fund the business debt equity ratio, and finally your liquidity for any kind of contingencies, which is a working capital that you need to have at least for, I personally feel at least a runway of 6 months is very, very crucial. Next slide. So second is your success. So this is so what your success metric on the self-assessment is. You need alignment of your life goals and financial goals. That is summarizing your score on the very first assessment. And then comes the market assessment, which is very, very important. Sometimes the opportunity is great, but perhaps your market is not right to bring that opportunity. There was a time when electric vehicle, we are still, I would not say at a very early stage, but we are at a stage where the population of electric vehicles is growing in the market. But I remember 5 years back when we had these companies coming in, they were not going all over. We knew which are the markets they have to start right, which are the markets which can, or which are the industries where the adoption can happen faster. So market assessment is to understand if there is sufficient demand of the services or the product that you want to launch in the market. That's very, very crucial. Next slide. Now, these are some areas which are very, very important when you look at the assessment of the market. First and foremost is the overall target audience, which is how big is my total addressable market. So maybe the density, the consumer behavior, the income levels, the age profile of the people, the overall family structure. These are important considerations for understanding what my consumer demographics is. Yesterday I was doing a very long call with one of the companies, which is Indriya. It's a company which is into, it's a part of Aditya Birla Group. And there was a small city where they were speaking to somebody, and the franchisee was a little curious, how do you select what locations? And he said, I have a location which is next to the biggest brand in India. And, hopefully that location was getting vacated. But Indriya had already done their due diligence around these years. We know what designs work. We know what kind of, age profile people are buying and what products are being bought. So at that level, that company had done, their assessment. So we need to understand what is my customer demographics in the area, how people are behaving, consumer are behaving, from the awareness of the brand, the industry, the category at large, how digital adoption is happening. So whenever I speak to brands, which are especially, D2C companies, the biggest, markets for them historically has been, Bangalore, even if the brand is not based out of Bangalore, their company is from Delhi or Bombay, because Bangalore comparatively had the highest digital adoption, which means any kind of e-commerce business, online companies, Bangalore was one of the markets where their performance was on the top. We need to understand the purchase frequency or even our own consumption, patterns in that category. And then comes the location potential. Now, location, we need to, I'll give you a little understanding on how the location in every business, every brand, every category, and even in the same brand, when the company is doing two different formats. Some formats are relevant for malls, some formats are relevant for airports, some are good for a high street. The thumb rule that we follow and we advise the companies and also our investors is to understand where is my nearest competition already operating in that market. So if I'm doing a gym brand, I need to see which is my nearest competition. So nearest competition means does not mean the topmost performer, but whom I equate myself in terms of competition in that category. We understand who are my top 4 or 5 competition in the market, which can be a local competition. It can be a regional, national competition, could also be an international brand which is operating in that market. Understand which are the cities, which locations in that city is that brand operating, what kind of locations, catchment, footfall, visibility they have. And out of those locations, I'm sure it is very easy to spot. Maybe there's a brand that is operating at 5 locations in the same city, but their revenue, their throughput, their efficiency will not be same across these locations. So out of these locations, we need to figure out which is the location where their performance is at peak, right? Which is highest. Now, when I open closer to them, I obviously, I have the companies have done their homework. My probability of a successful, venture in that location comparatively would be higher. And then our other indicators, which are overall infrastructure development. There are cities like I would say Gurgaon, even Hyderabad, I would say, Pune for that matter, where the infrastructure development has historically been on peak, especially last few years, and comparatively easy for franchise partners to get the right location at the right pricing. So we need to see how the overall infrastructure development is happening, commercial activities, disposable income overall, in the market. Because today the biggest, growth which is happening across all industries is business opportunities, or I would say services product, which are lifestyle centric, a young audience, which is Gen Z, millennials. They're the biggest consumers today. So we need to see, who and where my location is and how, well these can be accessed by a target audience. So these are few questions, which is who my customer is, how large that customer base can be. Now, when I talk about a customer base, it is very important to understand, and this is where a lot of, I would say, franchises and companies also miss out. We always feel that there is a new consumer base that is built up, which is not always the case, right? So if I'm opening a gym or if I'm opening a salon, a new brand, or maybe a new in my neighborhood, it is not that people are not consuming those services, or they're not people who are not going to gym, and I will have, people coming as new customer base, or people are not going to salons to take these services. But the larger shift happens from a market which is converting to your brand, right? I'm consuming gym services somewhere, but I find something which is differentiated, and that is the reason I would want to convert to you, right? So one is that, and second conversion which is happening is from unorganized to organized. Today, a lot of jewelers, and especially I'm sure if you're following franchising and if you're seeing the trends, jewelry is one category which is getting a very big traction today. A lot of people want to take jewelry businesses because these are generational businesses, can go on for 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And we have seen the top companies in India who have their partners for the last 3 decades, 4 decades operating, and their second, third generation have started coming in the business. So we need to, and not that people are buying more jewelry, but today the share which was earlier with the unorganized, I would say, or family jewelers, that is converting to organized chains. So some days back, I was speaking to somebody, he said, my family has been into the jewelry business for about 110 years. But he says, I can still sustain maybe the next 1-2 years, but I don't see my business surviving maybe beyond 3-4 years. And maybe my next generation definitely would not want to run the business because they've already started seeing that shift in the market. So these are things that we have to ask and understand what my next 5 to 10 years look like in that industry, because return on investment is very different from one category to another category and from one industry to another industry. Next slide. So this is my success matrix. When we look at market potential, we look at how big is my demand. We look at the purchasing power of the people, how accessible my brand can be, and what growth potential can I see in the next at least 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending on what industry I'm investing in. Next. So third is our assessment on the industry. Is this attractive industry for a long-term investment? The objective is to choose an industry with favorable long-term fundamentals rather than chasing short-term trends. I'll give an example. During COVID, we had certain businesses, and these were not the core businesses of the companies, but because that point in time, these companies felt this is additional revenue stream or business they could open. They launched, a lot of companies launched a brand which was into sanitization, right? So these were services like a pesticide service at home. These were services where people, could get a on demand, somebody who could come maybe every week, fortnightly to sanitize their homes. But we never felt that trend was something that is going to, sustain for the years to come. So we need to see any industry that we're looking at, the future fitment of the industry is extremely important. The relevance for the next 20 years, 25 years, it's extremely important because all return on investment, when it is calculated on the longevity, of the business. Next slide. So what do we do here is, again, we need to understand the trends for a consumer. And premiumization today is becoming a very, very big trend. Today, people are, trading up and from cafes to services to even products which they consume. So premiumization today is becoming a very big trend. There are trends like even health and wellness, which is a big trend. People are investing in their wellness. Concepts like longevity clinics, I don't know how many of you have heard, but today concepts that were very common in the Western world, even the youngsters and people in India are becoming more and more conscious, not just beauty, but longevity, which is overall health. These are trends which are becoming extremely, and these are trends which I think the next 25, 30 years will be sunshine industries. Convenience is a big trend, digital adoption, sustainability of the business. These all are trends that we should, see and evaluate. If your market has these trends and the business that you choose can accept the sustainability over the next few years. Then we look at the demand, how big the demand is. Now, whether the product or the service that you have is essential, is it a lifestyle product? It is a premium luxury product. Maybe I might not have a very high repeat case, but my value is high, which could be jewelry or a luxury product, or it is a seasonal product. We need to analyze based on that. And then comes scalability of our business, how scalable, our business is, followed by regulatory environment, because regulations are again compliances, regulations, licenses, government regulations are very, and these are both, subject of a center and a state. So what does the guidelines of the state talk about the industry that you're investing in? It could be the pharmacy opening. If you're opening a pharmacy, what are drug license policies? If you're opening a food restaurant or you're opening a bar, every state has a different guidelines to that. So understand what are the environment regulatory compliances which are required. And your brand also works with you in helping you, guiding you. They don't get it for you because it has to be obtained in your own name. So, but they help you and guide you to obtain these. Next slide. So overall industry attractiveness in terms of our overall score, what we created, we have created these weightage for these assessment scores. So first is the market growth. We have put 20% for that. So if the opportunity has a big, market growth, future fits 20% is a big consumer demand, another 15% to it. Competition is very, very important because if the competition is growing, definitely this is a category, which is there to stay, 10% for that. If that business has a repeat percentage, it is another 15 that we add. Profit margins are very, very important. And it is even more important when you're doing area franchise business because you have two tiers. One is the area, one is the parent company itself. Then you have area franchisee, and then comes the unit franchisee. So what are the overall profit margins in the business? Scalability for the business, especially if you are a partner who's taken a bigger area and you want to scale that brand to multiple locations within the city or within the state. And what is the differentiation that you bring as a brand on the table? Today, like I said, people, consumers like us, when we convert from one brand to another, the reason are the differentiation that we see, the overall consumer experience that we have on a brand, which makes a shift actually happen. That's another 10%. And then is your technology. If it is obsolete, redundant, we need to analyze, how the companies have done their technology to evolve over a period of time. So another 5% there. Now, out of this 100%, anything which is above, I would say, it says 80%, but I would say anything upwards of 70, 75%, if you're able to score, that is good enough. But if you don't have that score, then definitely we need to go a little deeper to understand where we are falling. Next slide. So last comes the assessment of the competition. So we need to see who my competition is there in the market and can this business also compete successfully. The biggest thing, like I said, is a differentiation that I bring because the markets are not creating always a new audience. They're converting an existing audience to your brand. So every franchise operates in a very competitive environment. And I personally feel that's the best thing. All my brands that I've opened up and including the masters that we own, they have actually opened and the locations, the sites that we select are just next to the competition, which is doing well in that market. So franchisees should understand both, I would say, direct and indirect competition before entering the market. Next slide. So these are things, friends, that you must need to assess. One is your direct competition, maybe the companies, brands who are offering similar products or services, any indirect competitors in the market, which is alternate products or solutions that can satisfy the same customer or the need, not exactly, but they have something which is complementing. The level of the market, which is sometimes the market might already be having an oversupply of an existing category, which means it looks like a good competition, but sometimes there's an oversupply, and which is cannibalization of business. So we need to see how big is the addressable market and what share of that market can I take, and there's enough for me to take in the market. So number of competitors in the market, and is there an opportunity for a new category or a new brand to come in, which can take a market share, to their own store. We need to also look at the positioning of the competition from the price point of view, the quality, the services, their product, technology, overall experience, for a consumer, innovation, which is extremely important. And finally comes our local market dynamics, which is existing operators in the market, what kind of customer loyalty they have to the existing operators. And finally is your intensity of promotions. Today we are living in a social media world. A lot of times you've never heard the brand, never consumed the services, but because of these promotions, social media, Insta reels that we see, we start particularly following or consuming certain products and services. So all that is very community driven. So we have to, any opportunity that you want to invest in, we need to ensure that we're creating a community around it to make it a strong brand. Fine. Next slide. So what it means as a success, what you need to evaluate is differentiation that you bring in, recognition of the brand, customer loyalty, the value proposition the brand is offering to their end consumer, to a franchisee. That's very, very important. And finally comes the operational excellence, which means, I would say, how easy is it for a franchisee to get into business? Sometimes on the outside, the business looks easy, but we have to go to understand how your go-to market and ease of doing business, comes to a franchise partner. So these are areas which are important metrics for any partner franchisee who wants to start business. Next slide, please. And friends, this is finally the brand. Once you have done that, we need to also understand if the brand that I've selected, is this brand or a franchisee worthy of the investment that you want to put in. And the objective here is a franchisee, I always say, is only as strong as the brand, the business model, and the support system behind it. So it's a combination of all three. It cannot be, I can be a great profile, but maybe the brand I've chosen doesn't fit in, my overall profile. So this all has to work in sync and in totality. Next slide. So how do we assess the brand? And one thing which I want to say, working with different companies over the years, I've realized that every company would be at a different stage of their life cycle. I've worked with companies who are 90-year-old, 80-year-old companies, 100-year-old companies. I've worked with companies which are 2-year, 3-year-old companies. So it does not today, really make a difference if the company is very, very old. It's going to be great. If the company is new, it might not be a great opportunity. Not every franchise or every brand would be same. So as a franchise partner, you have to do a lot of research to get to know everything about the brand, including their operations, if they're running a franchise network, what locations are they doing, how many outlets they've been operating over a year, over the years, what is the average churn rate for a franchise company, which means how many franchisees on an average also close, how many of them are multi-unit franchisees. They're a company like Eurokids, they're one of the I would say biggest market share when it comes to preschools. They all franchise partners are multi-unit franchise partners, and all are women entrepreneurs who own an average of 5 to 6 preschools themselves, and which talks about the trust franchisees have on the company. So these are important questions that you should ask. And also we need to understand who are the people behind the business, the legacy of the company, the stakeholders, maybe the profile of the people, if they've done any investment in the past, how these investments have fared. So these are important considerations to be understood when you look at, assessing the brand. But most important outside this is to go back, Bharat, is also to understand there are two things which I feel, most of the investors, franchisees I work with, whether these are first generation entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs, I see the least time is spent on understanding the unit economics, which is a business model. I've seen people negotiating on royalties, on the margins, on the franchise fees. But I really, see people getting very deeply involved to understand how my unit business model operates. What kind of margins do I have in the business? What inflation would my business have? What is my cost of goods or the food cost? How would that escalate every year? So you have to spend, I would say, a lot of time to understand the business model and do also comparison apple to apple. So if you're doing maybe, a food brand, maybe for that matter, maybe a coffee shop brand, find out similar brands, what margins, their pricing, their positioning. All that is extremely important, for you to get very deeply involved in. And then comes the support from the company. And this is important for businesses, whether these are old businesses, companies getting in franchising for the very first time. Now, what kind of training is the company imparting you? Is it just for you or somebody in your family? Because a lot of companies, I advise that they should not just train somebody who signed the dotted line, the franchisee, but they should also train in their families, other partners, or it could be your children, it could be your wife, your husband who also wants to be involved in the business, so that you don't have complete dependability on, just one individual. So what training is imparted, how long the training is given, training for the staff, any retraining which is required, whether that's happening in the store. Sometimes companies invite to their own stores, and there are times when the companies do training also at the site of the franchisee, and they do a combination of two. The support the company gives in site selection, I feel site selection is extremely important, being not just as an advisor, but running, nearly 70 brands ourselves. I have taken sometimes even 6 months. There have been rare cases where we have waited for 4 to 6 months also just to get the right site. We've never compromised on that, because that's, I would say, is the foundation of the business. If I don't get the right site, I would never have my business going right. Any marketing support, go-to-market support, promotions companies doing, operational support in terms of auditing of your store, where my food cost is going high. So that all support from supply chain, which is perishable, non-perishable equipment, inventory, all that is extremely very, very important for you to get in. And then comes the overall financial performance, which I was talking about, is the payback period, ROI. And there is no one answer, what is a good ROI? It is subjective to the industry, the horizon of the opportunity, which means, maybe a business of a K-12 school will take at least 6 years to break even. A lab-grown brand in that segment might take just 3.5 years to break even. But a full-scale jewelry brand like, Indriya would take at least 4 to 5 years to break even. So depending on what category industry is, you need to understand to see what your payback period is. And overall, EBITDA in the business, franchise success rate, if the business has franchise partners. If not, even if the company has been running their company operated stores, we can understand what kind of business they have. And then comes the network strength, how many outlets they have, retention of the franchisee, the track record of expansion for the company. There are companies who expand very fast, but they also start closing down. So we need to track all that. Next slide. So great friends, this is what we had, and then this is just a summary of what weightage each of these parameters would have. So brand equity is the overall goodwill of the brand. I think that's very, very important, because if the brand is powerful, you already have a lot of your homework already done. People already know you. So 20% unit economics, 20% support from the company, the 20% leadership, people behind the management, 15%, another expansion track record, 15%. Innovation technology, I feel, is now a part and parcel of any business. There's no business that can sustain without having technology disruption and innovation. So another 10% on that. Next slide. So this is what, friends, we had. I think we talk about. So it's assessment of your own self, assessment of the market, industry, competition, and finally comes the brand assessment. So friends, this is what we had to share with you today. And I also see some of you would like to have the presentation. Thank you so much, Deepak Agarwalji. We'll be happy to share this presentation with you. In fact, I have office in Bangalore, and I see you're looking for something in the education and training industry. In fact, Franchise India also owns a brand called Action Coach. And I have 8 other brands, including Brian Tracy, Mars and Venus. These are all companies which are on the education skill development. We can maybe discuss some of these if these align with you. And Mr. Gupta, very good evening to you, Mr. Mangaldas Gupta. You're also from Karnataka. You're looking for a franchise model for my daughter. So definitely, I'll like to discuss with you what is she doing and her core strengths. And Mr. Murthy will be happy to share this presentation. And I have this question: would you be able to support with coaching on any government incentives are provided? How to avail them? Mr. Murthy, we can work on that, but only with respect to the companies. There are a lot of brands which have a lot of government incentives which are linked to their franchise program. And if that is the case, we can definitely guide you. So friends, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll let Bharat share the hotline number with all of you. And I'll also request whoever wants to reach out to us, please let us know. We'll maybe do one-to-one meeting or a call. And if you're local, my teams definitely would be there in that city. We would rather like to invite you for a one-to-one meeting and brainstorm with you. Sure, Ajay ji, we'll share this presentation with you. And Bharat, if you can just take all these numbers and let's share these presentation and also our hotline number.
Right.
Wonderful.
If you all can, I think Deepak Agarwal is looking for. Right. So you can send your number. I'll try to give you. I'll send this presentation. However, in case if anyone would like to get in touch with us, I think you can connect with us on the number 9717683838. Or you can also write to us at feedback@franchisecenter.in. I'm just writing this down, the number in the chat box.
Bharat is sharing a hotline number, friends, and we have taken a note of your email ID and contact details that you have sent. And Bharat, if you can send this presentation to all our friends who've asked for it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, friends, for being with us today. Have a great evening.